The family gathering was supposed to be a celebration, a simple barbecue at my parents' sprawling estate, complete with laughter, good food, and the usual family drama. But when my sister, Charlotte, arrived, the mood shifted. Dressed in a designer dress that hugged her like it was tailored just for her, she entered the backyard with the swagger of a queen. I could feel my heart sink at the sight. It wasn't just her outfit that made me feel small. It was the way everyone's eyes lit up at her presence. "Guess what, everyone?" she announced, her voice dripping with excitement. "I just closed on a condo downtown. It's modern, sleek, and just perfect for me." The words echoed, bouncing off the expensive patio furniture and the crystal glasses clinking in celebration. Charlotte's smile was radiant, but it felt like daggers sharpening my insecurities. My parents, who had always favored her, beamed with pride, as if this accomplishment was a reflection of their own success. I tried to smile, to blend in, but the weight of her announcement crushed down on me, suffocating any hope I had of emerging from the shadows. If you've ever been underestimated by family, you'll understand every part of what happened next. "Congratulations, Charlotte!" They all chimed in, surrounding her like moths to a flame. It was a familiar song, one I had heard many times before. Her triumph felt like a sharpened knife, digging deeper into the wounds of our family's toxic dynamic. I could see the glances exchanged, my parents, so proud of their golden child, while I stood at the periphery of the celebration, a ghost in my own family's story. "Isn't it beautiful?" Charlotte continued, flipping through her phone to showcase pictures of the gleaming interiors. "I've got the best view of the skyline and a rooftop pool that's to die for. I can already picture all the parties I'll host there." I watched everyone lean in closer, captivated by her words. I felt a jolt of anger surge through me, mixing with embarrassment like a potent cocktail. Memories flooded back, years of being compared to her, of being told to try harder when I struggled to keep up with her accomplishments. Every success she shared felt like a public shaming of my own failures. "Wow, that sounds incredible. What a lucky girl," one of my aunts exclaimed, her voice dripping with envy and admiration. I realized then that it was more than just a condo. It was another brick in the wall that separated me from my family. My heart raced and I gritted my teeth, holding back the floodgates of emotions. The barbecue continued, but I felt like an outsider. Conversations swirled around me, but none felt real. They all revolved around Charlotte. I could hear snippets of discussion about her plans for decorating, the potential of her new neighborhood, and how she would finally step into adulthood with this grand achievement. The food on my plate lost its taste as everything turned into a dull noise, overshadowed by my sister's shining glory. I put down my fork, suddenly aware of the deep-seated resentment bubbling beneath my skin. I wanted to scream, to tell them all how her success made me feel invisible, how I had tried so hard to be noticed, but I swallowed those feelings instead. They were safe behind my silence, where my shame lay dormant, ready to strike when provoked by moments like this. The crowd began to disperse, but Charlotte's story carried on like a cloud of perfume, impossible to escape. I caught the eye of my mother, who was beaming with pride, her gaze fixed on Charlotte. It was a reminder of the relentless favoritism that had shaped my childhood. No matter how much I accomplished, I could never measure up to the pedestal on which they placed her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the yard, I realized that I was standing at a crossroads. I was tired of feeling like the forgotten sibling, the one who never quite fit into the mold. Each praise directed at Charlotte sliced into my self-worth, yet I knew deep down that I was capable of more than they could see. I longed for validation, for a place where I could feel just as cherished and respected. Then something inside me shifted. The humiliation, the anger, I could use it. I could rise from the ash heap of their expectations. But for now, I had to endure this moment, this dinner, this family gathering that had spiraled into a nightmare of shame. The night wore on, and while Charlotte basked in her limelight, the seeds of my own awakening began to take root deep within me. Little did they know, their golden girl was standing atop a shaky throne. The truth was, I had a secret that could change everything. In the quiet corners of my life, I had been building something of my own, a life that I had kept hidden, far from their prying eyes. They did not know what lay beneath the surface, the depth of my resources, the ambition I channeled while they laughed and toasted to Charlotte's success. As I watched her laugh and indulge in her moment, I felt a flicker of hope. The tides were turning. Soon enough, I would no longer be the underdog in this family saga. Soon enough, they would see the truth. In the fading light of the barbecue, the laughter and chatter around me felt like a distant echo, a mere backdrop to the tempest brewing inside my mind. I stood there, grappling with the raw emotions that surged through me, a mix of anger and despair. As I watched Charlotte bask in the glow of admiration, I felt a familiar weight settle on my shoulders, the unbearable burden of comparison. With each compliment directed at her, I felt myself shrink further into the background. My parents' voices, filled with pride, cut through me like icy blades. "You always were the talented one, Charlotte. I can't wait to see how you decorate that condo." My mother's words rang out, a sweet melody to my sister's ears, but a haunting reminder of my own perceived inadequacies. The night wore on, and I found myself retreating to a quiet corner of the yard, away from the prying eyes and the relentless praise. I needed a moment to breathe, to gather my thoughts. I could hear the laughter behind me, Charlotte's voice rising above the rest, recounting her plans for the condo as if it were the pinnacle of her life's achievements. I closed my eyes, seeking solace in memories that felt distant. There was a time when I too had dreams, big dreams that sparkled with potential. I had always been passionate about architecture and design, spending hours sketching out my ideas on scraps of paper. But somewhere along the way, those aspirations were overshadowed by the relentless comparisons to my sister. "Why can't you be more like Charlotte?" was a refrain I had heard so often that it became a haunting mantra. As I leaned against the cool wooden fence, I felt a fire ignite within me. I was tired of being the shadow, tired of being the second best in a family that seemed to thrive on competition. "Why can't I just be me?" I whispered to myself, the words barely escaping my lips. I had buried my dreams for too long, suffocated by the weight of expectations. It was time to reclaim my narrative. With newfound resolve, I stepped back into the fray. As I approached the group, I could feel a shift in the atmosphere. Conversations paused, and I caught the curious gazes of my family members. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I prepared to confront the invisible barriers that had long defined our relationships. "Can we talk about something important?" I asked, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Charlotte looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "What's up, little sis?" she asked, a hint of condescension lacing her tone. The others looked on, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disbelief. "I've been thinking," I started, forcing myself to articulate the words that had been stuck in my throat for years. "About how we've always been compared, how I've always been compared to you. It feels like my accomplishments don't matter because they don't measure up to yours." My parents exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from surprise to defensiveness. "Oh honey, we never meant to make you feel that way," my mother replied, her voice a mix of concern and dismissal. "But you have," I pressed, my voice rising slightly. "Every time you celebrate Charlotte's victories, it feels like you're diminishing mine. I've achieved things too, even if they're not the grand milestones you expect." "I mean, it's not our fault you don't have anything to show for yourself," Charlotte shot back, her smile fading. "Maybe if you focused more on your goals instead of sulking, you'd have something to brag about too." That was it, the final straw. A wave of anger washed over me, igniting a fierce determination. "Maybe I haven't shown you my goals because I've been too busy trying to fit into a mold you've created," I retorted, my voice rising above the din. "But I'm more than just Charlotte's little sister. I have dreams, aspirations, and talents you've never even acknowledged." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, a palpable energy that shifted the dynamics of the room. For the first time, I was standing my ground, and it felt both terrifying and liberating. "I've been working on my architecture portfolio in secret," I admitted, surprising not only them but myself. "I've designed a few small projects and I'm looking into getting them published. I have potential that I've never shared because I've always felt overshadowed by you." Charlotte's expression shifted from smugness to disbelief, and I cherished that fleeting moment. The family dynamic was cracking, and I wasn't about to let it be mended easily. "You might have a fancy condo, but I'm on my way to something greater," I added, feeling the weight of my words. "But why didn't you ever say anything?" my mother asked, her voice softening. "We don't want to overshadow you, we just want to support you. If you truly wanted to support me, you would have recognized my efforts instead of pushing me to the sidelines." I replied, my heart racing. It's time for me to stand in my own light, regardless of how bright Charlotte shines. As I spoke, I noticed the expressions on their faces shift. My parents' pride mingled with confusion, the recognition dawning that maybe they had been blind to my struggles. I felt a stirring of hope. Perhaps this confrontation would lead to something more than just a quarrel. The tension hung in the air, thick and electric. I could feel a shift happening, a slow awakening to truths long buried. I didn't know what the next steps would be, but I was finally ready to take control of my own story. I was no longer just the underdog, I was reclaiming my identity, and I could feel the tide beginning to turn. Let's talk about our futures, yours and mine, I concluded, my voice steady. I want us to support each other, not compare. I'm ready to share my journey with you, but it starts with understanding and respect. As I stood there, my heart pounding, I sensed that this was the beginning of a new chapter. The silence that followed wasn't just an absence of sound, it was a moment of reflection. For the first time, I could see the path ahead, uncertain but undeniably mine. As the silence enveloped the backyard, I could feel the weight of my revelations settling on everyone's shoulders. The air crackled with tension, and for the first time, I wasn't the only one feeling small. There was a flicker of uncertainty in Charlotte's eyes, a crack in her polished exterior that gave me a sense of satisfaction. But I wasn't done yet. I had reached a turning point, and it was time to harness the power I had been quietly building. Do you want to know the real reason I've held back? I asked, my voice steady and clear, cutting through the silence. My family maintained their rapt attention, the shift in dynamics palpable. I've been investing in real estate. For years, I stated, each word dripping with newfound conviction. That building where you think you're the proud owner of a condo. I own the entire thing. A wave of gasps erupted, punctuated by Charlotte's incredulous laughter, a sound I once found comforting but now felt like nails on a chalkboard. Oh please, you can't be serious. You're just trying to save face, she sneered, but there was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her disbelief. I am dead serious, I continued, my heart racing with the thrill of finally claiming my truth. While you were busy flaunting your lifestyle, I was quietly investing my savings and building something substantial. I've been working with a real estate firm, learning the ins and outs, and now I'm ready to take control of my future. The shock on my parents' faces was priceless, a reflection of years of dismissiveness transformed into realization. You've been doing what? My mother finally managed to stammer, her voice a mix of concern and confusion. Why didn't you tell us? Because I knew you wouldn't take me seriously, I replied, matching my gaze with each family member. You've always celebrated Charlotte's successes while ignoring my ambitions. It's a part of why I felt like I had to hide my achievements. Charlotte's facade started to crumble, and I relished the moment. This isn't a game, she said, her voice low, a hint of desperation creeping in. You can't just claim to own a building without proof. What's your game? I smiled. I've got proof. You'll see it soon enough. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was not just about property, it was about reclaiming my dignity and asserting my place within this family. I think it's time for a family meeting, I declared, my voice unwavering. I want to show you the truth about what I've built and how it impacts all of us. You've been so convinced of your superiority, but it's time to shatter that illusion. Charlotte's expression morphed from disbelief to fear, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. I had inadvertently become the catalyst for her realization that the world she had constructed was built on shaky ground. Fine, she said, her bravado faltering. Let's see your proof then. But I don't believe you. It was exhilarating to see her squirm. I had fought against my own insecurities for so long, and now it was her turn to grapple with the reality of my accomplishments. I had plans, a strategy that would not just demonstrate my worth but also expose the hypocrisy of her constant belittlement. The family gathered in the living room, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. I could sense the skepticism radiating from Charlotte, but I was determined to shine a light on my hidden assets. I pulled out my laptop and opened a presentation I had meticulously prepared weeks before. It detailed my investments, the properties I owned, and the projects I had in the works. As I clicked through the slides, I watched their expressions shift from disbelief to astonishment. When I reached the slide that displayed the building where Charlotte's condo was located, I paused. This is my property, I'm the owner, you're living in one of my units. Charlotte's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with shock. You're lying, she exclaimed, but the tremor in her voice said otherwise. I'm not, I stated firmly. And you'll see it for yourself. I have documents, contracts, and a legal team ready to ensure everything is in order. You may have thought you were climbing the social ladder, but you were actually standing on my foundation. The room fell silent, the weight of my words settling in. My parents looked at me with a mixture of pride and shock, their earlier dismissiveness now replaced by a respect they had long withheld. I felt a rush of validation, as if the universe had finally aligned to support my truth. This was the moment I had waited for, the culmination of years spent in the shadows. I wasn't just Charlotte's little sister anymore. I was a force to be reckoned with. I had transformed from a passive victim into an empowered individual, and I intended to seize that power fully. I hope this opens your eyes to how you've treated me, I said, my voice steady. It's time for us to redefine what family means. It shouldn't be about competition or comparison, but about support and recognition of each other's journeys. The tension in the room was palpable. My heart raced as I prepared for their responses. I knew this confrontation would challenge old dynamics and force my family to reckon with their perceptions of worth and success. It was a pivotal moment, not just for me but for all of us. As I closed my laptop, I looked around the room, noting the way my family members shifted in their seats. I was ready for whatever came next, ready to face the consequences of my truth. I had taken control, and whatever the outcome, I knew I would walk away with my dignity intact. The game had changed, and now it was my turn to play. As Charlotte's incredulous laughter echoed in the room, I felt a surge of adrenaline. Her disbelief was palpable, and for a moment, I reveled in the power of the truth I was about to unleash. You can deny it all you want, I said, my voice steady, but I have the documentation to back up every word I've said. With a swift motion, I clicked to the next slide, revealing a title deed adorned with my name, the very ownership that Charlotte had scoffed at moments ago. This is the legal proof of my ownership. The entire building is mine, every single unit, including the one you call home. The room fell silent, the only sound being the soft hum of the air conditioning. I could see the gears turning in Charlotte's mind as she processed the information, her expression shifting from disbelief to a mixture of anger and fear. You're lying. This has to be fake, she stammered, her bravado cracking under the weight of reality. I remained calm, the years of humiliation and doubt transforming into a reservoir of strength. I've spent years quietly building this while you basked in the glow of your perceived success. I didn't need to shout about my accomplishments, my work spoke for itself. My parents sat in stunned silence, their faces a blend of shock and confusion. My mother finally broke the silence, her voice trembling. But why didn't you tell us? We could have supported you. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the moment wash over me. Because I knew you wouldn't believe in me. You've always favored Charlotte, celebrated her every achievement while dismissing my dreams as mere fantasies. I had to prove myself before I could make you understand. The tension in the room was thick, and I could sense the shift in dynamics. My family's perception of me was slowly unraveling. Charlotte, remember all those times you belittled my aspirations? Every time you flaunted your wealth and success, I was quietly working to build my own legacy. I wanted to show you that I could succeed without being in your shadow. Charlotte's expression morphed into one of desperation. But you can't just take everything from me, this is all I have. I held her gaze, feeling a mixture of pity and empowerment. I'm not taking anything from you, Charlotte, I'm merely reclaiming what's rightfully mine. You've never understood the value of hard work, and now it's time for you to face the consequences of your arrogance. Just then the doorbell rang, cutting through the charged atmosphere. I glanced at my family, puzzled by the interruption, but I knew it was time for the final act of this drama. Stay here, I'll be right back, I said, my heart pounding with anticipation. I opened the door to find a well-dressed man, an attorney from the real estate firm I had been working with. Is this the meeting? He asked, a professional smile on his face. I nodded, inviting him inside, feeling a rush of excitement. This was the external authority I needed to validate my claim. Everyone, this is Mr. Thompson, my attorney, I announced, gesturing for him to join me in the living room. He's here to confirm my ownership of the building and provide further details about our upcoming plans. As Mr. Thompson began to speak, My family listened with rapt attention. I can verify that the property is indeed owned by you, and not only that, but you have several other investments that will secure your financial future. While your sister has been busy enjoying her life, she has overlooked the significance of what she has taken for granted. Charlotte's expression turned from shock to anger as Mr. Thompson's words sank in. "You're lying, you're just trying to ruin my life," she shouted, her voice laced with panic. "No, Charlotte," I replied, my tone calm and collected. "I'm not ruining anything, I'm simply revealing the truth. You've built your identity on the foundation of my perceived failure, and it's time for you to recognize the reality." The atmosphere was electric, the tension palpable as my family processed the information. I could see the realization dawning on my parents, the understanding that their favoritism had blinded them to my potential. "Charlotte," I continued, my voice steady, "this isn't just about the building. It's about understanding what family means. It's about respect and acknowledgement. I want us to be equals, not rivals. But that requires you to accept that my success is not a threat to your identity." The silence that followed was deafening, and for the first time, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The years of feeling small, of being dismissed and belittled, were finally being replaced by a newfound sense of empowerment. Charlotte's bravado crumbled completely, and I could see the fear reflected in her eyes. "What will you do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll continue to build what I've started," I said, my heart swelling with pride. "And I hope you can find a way to support me rather than compete with me. Family should uplift each other, not tear each other down." As I concluded, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The emotional journey I had undertaken had transformed me from the underestimated sibling into someone who had claimed their place in the family. "Thank you for being here, Mr. Thompson," I said, turning to him. "I appreciate your help in this moment." With a nod, he smiled back, clearly impressed by my resolve. "It's been a pleasure to help. Your success is well-deserved." As he left, I turned to my family, the tensions slowly dissipating. "I hope we can rebuild our relationships on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. I want to create a new narrative for our family, one where we all thrive together." My parents exchanged glances, their expressions softening as they began to grasp the depth of my journey. "We're proud of you," my father finally said, his voice filled with sincerity. "We should have seen your potential all along." In that moment, I realized that the path to healing had begun. The journey towards understanding and acceptance would take time, but I was ready to embrace it. I had reclaimed my dignity, and with it, I hoped to inspire a new chapter for my family, one where love triumphed over rivalry and where each of us could shine in our own right. "If you enjoyed this story," I said, feeling the weight of my journey lift, "subscribe for more stories where the underdog finally gets the justice they deserve."